Hello and welcome. So we're going to start styling our form now, our login and sign up form, so it looks a little more like this. We're focused on just the bottom. Remember, we have the logo, these two inputs, and the button. Just like here, logo, two inputs, and a button. So let's start making it look a little more like this by going into our React app now. Now, there's one thing that came up when I started my React app back up. I used yarn start to run my React app, and it says IMG elements must have an alt prop. That's absolutely true, and I want to make sure we do that right now before we move on to the next step. Go to your IMG element, and what you want to do is after everything, type in alt equals and then just logo. So that will be displayed if they can't find this here, this logo. It'll just say logo where that is. There'll be text there. I'm going to save that up, and that'll go away when we do our compile here. That's it. Now all it's not defined is fragment, and we'll wind up using that a bit later. So let's get started on the styling. Go into your auth page. We're going to add in a file called auth.css. Now in auth.css we'll do all of our styling, but it needs to get into the app, so we'll go to the app and we'll import it just like we imported app.css, or the app actually did that for us when we built this up, but /auth page and then / again into auth.css, and now we're using the CSS that we write in here in our actual app, and I could prove that real quick by pulling the first element that we're going to style from the auth page, which is our first element, login form. I'm just going to grab that. It's login-form. Go over here, put a dot. That's your selector, and then we put our class name. We open up our brackets, and we're good to go on display flex. Now save that and take a look at your app. That shrunk everything down quite a bit, just putting it in display flex. Now I want to give it a height and I want to give it a width. So let's do a height of 25 rem. That'll be 250 pixels, a width of 25 rem, which is the same. And take a look at it now. There it is. Good, good. Now we want everything inside to move over towards the center a little bit more. There's a few things wrong with this. Let's actually use the inspector. Just right click, inspect it, and take a look at what we're working with. So we have the login form. Now if you see the login form, it's taking up all of this room. The entire page from left to right is being taken up by the login form right now. So it'd be nice to center that. And we can do that pretty easily right here. Check this out. So what we want to do first is margin left and margin right. So we'll do margin left on auto and margin right on auto. So what are we saying here when we say margin left on auto and margin right on auto? Go as far from the left and as far from the right as you can, which therefore centers it, and it looks pretty good that way. So let's keep moving now. Let's go. My biggest problem with this is now that these are on top of each other and this is to the side. We know that we need all three on top of each other if we're going to make it look like this. So let's grab the container that contains all of this and put them on top of each other. That'll be your second container, your login form group. So the form itself here is the second thing we have to work on. So grab that, go into your auth .login form group, and we can get started there. I want to display of flex again, and let's take a look at what that did. Now that moved everything next to each other, as flex usually does. It moved the email address to the left and password and so on. So we need to change the flex direction. So flex direction, and we'll change that to column. All right, now we're getting what we want. This looks a lot more like what we're going for. We can see that the login form is much bigger. That 250 pixels is much bigger than what's being taken up right now. You can see it's kind of small and up to the right. So let's work on that a little bit more. We'll go over here and we'll say width 100%. So take up the entire width. There we are. Now we're much bigger. It looks much better already. And we'll do a couple more things. Just align items to the center. Now everything is centered and the login is below the email and password. This is working great so far. Let's keep going. I have one more thing I want to do, and that's to spread everything out. So I want to justify the content to space between, which means get as much space between each other as possible. Now, what we can see here is the logo is taking up a ton of room right here. You can see that's the logo. That's the logo right there. It's taking up a lot of room, probably too much. So we'll work on that. Usually I would take the logo into a different program and actually cut it, but I want to do everything in code here. So let's work on the logo next. So that's dot login form _ logo. Now in here, I want to go width to 100%. Now it should just inherit this, but let's do it anyway. And next I want to go margin top. That'll be 3 rem. Let's take a look now. Let's see. You can see how much that came down. And it looks like this might be better to explain if we put the box shadow around it, so we don't have to keep on looking in the inspector. So let's work on the box shadow real quick. I'll go up to the top in the login form. So we have to just type in this box shadow here. Box shadow is going to be 0, and then we're going to do 0.7 rem and 1.2 rem, and that is how long the shadow is and what the blur is. And then RGBA, we want a black color, which is 000, and then we want the alpha to be kind of see-through, so we'll do 0.2 there. All right, so we have pretty much an outline, but not on the bottom, I imagine, because we have no margin bottom, so it has nowhere to go. Let's just do that quick. Margin bottom of 3 rem. And there we are. Now we have on our bottom over here the shadow, and on the sides the shadow. So you can see what we're working with, where the logo is taking up almost the entirety of this box, and we don't want that. So we have some work to do on this logo, and I'm glad that we put that box shadow around it, because I could see something that went wrong right away. That margin actually moved it in the wrong direction. So we actually want that margin to be a negative 3 rem. So then we could raise it up a little bit. There we are. Now the logo is a little higher. If we see, it's still too much space on the bottom. So let's do a margin bottom. We'll do negative on that too. Let's do negative 5 rem. I think we need quite a bit on the bottom. There we go. Now that's starting to look a lot better to me. So this doesn't look exactly like this yet, but we're definitely getting closer. So let's move from there over to the input text. So dot input _ text. And these are our input text, the email and the password. So let's get the width on it. We always want to have a smaller width on this, just a tiny bit, just so it seems contained by its container. So I'm going to make the width 90%, and I'm going to move down to the height, and we're going to make that 3 rem. So let's explain what that did. So 90% gave us 5% space here, 5% space here, and 3 rem is from top to bottom of this input field here. So now we got a bit bigger, it looks a little bit smoother, and if we see, we're actually coming a lot closer. We did use a capital email address. We could change that later, or you could change that now if you'd like as well. Let's go over to our login button. That login button we have now is very plain, and we're going to make it look good, green, so it's clickable. You know it's clickable, and I think it already has mouse over. Oh no, it doesn't. We're going to give it a mouse over change of cursor as well. Let's go dot input _ submit. Let's get to work on this one. The first thing, I want to take away that border. So border, none. You can see now the border around it is gone. The next thing we'll do is match the width of the other inputs. So let's do a width of 90%. And now we can see everything is the same. We see right here, it's lined up with the outsides. That'll make it look a little bit nicer. So we did the width. Let's move over to the height. And that's 3 rem like the rest of them. And there we go. Now we have our 3 rem button. Now we want a few more things. On the submit button, I want to change the color of the text, and we're finally going to use variable. So our color is going to be var, then open up your parentheses, and inside of there, -- color dash, I think it was white that I wanted to use, so it's just white. So you'll see the text should disappear pretty much. Yeah, it's almost not there, but it's white text that says the login. And now we want to color the button. So let's do that next with a background color. Now the background color is going to be one of the greens that we use, the lighter green. So just a var -- color, and we named it green, and then light. Save that. And here we are with a pretty nice looking button. This button needs a few more things. The first thing we need to do is lift it off the bottom. You see the logo, the top is lifted, lowered from the top. We need this lifted off the bottom a little bit, give it a little breathing room, a little space, and make sure it's contained within this whole group here. So lifting it off the bottom is pretty simple. We just need to do a margin bottom. And I imagine the margin bottom to be about 2 rem, not too big. Let's see. That looks very clean. That looks really, really good so far. We could make that more. We could really measure the spaces between here, make this as perfect as we want, but I want to keep this going, and we could obsess about it later. So let's change that button to make it seem more clickable. There's a couple ways to do that. The best way to do that is just to change your cursor into a pointer. So let's do that first. Cursor pointer. Now what did that do? That made the cursor change when it goes over the login into a pointer, giving you some feedback that yes, you can click this. So I want to get to its hover property. So .input submit, and then we want to go to hover. And that'll bring up its hover property. So when it's being hovered, what do we want to happen? All I want to happen is I want this to change color just a little bit. So I'm going to go from the light green to the dark green in the background color. So type in background color, and then we'll do another var because we made this variable in the first lesson, -- color, green light. We want to change the light to dark. Now save that and let's see if it works. There we are. Now we really know we can click this button. It's looking a lot more like this already, and we have that activity here as well. Yeah, so we have that feedback, and we have everything that we wanted in order to get this form kind of styled up. And now we're going to move on. We're going to do a JSX. We're going to do a little bit of JavaScript and styling, and they're not going to be in separate videos now. We're going to work on things and style them and so on and so on. We have a lot of fun ahead of us, and I have a few little surprises I'm not sure if you're working with yet, but you should integrate into your programming. So stay tuned and follow me to the next video.